Namaste and welcome everyone. Glad to have you back here with me today for the next chapter, the next episode in the book of short stories, Thanks for the Yellow Roses. Remember that these stories all have some photographs in them. I think some really quite lovely photographs in black and white. If you like that kind of thing, you might want to get a copy of the book on Amazon or from your local bookstore. The title of this story is Your Mayor of What? It's been more than 2 years since my wife left town. When I am tempted to offer an explanation for it, it's a little less painful to say that she left because she felt she simply couldn't live in any town that would have me as mayor, especially in a town called Deadman Springs. It makes a very good storyline, and it's probably even at least partially true. By the way, I've changed the name of the community to protect the innocent. The town isn't really Deadman Springs, but it works well in this story. I've been called lots of things in my life, some good, some not so good, but Mayor of Deadman Springs? One friend even exaggerates the title by saying it in Spanish, making it sound exotic and grandiose all in one. Come on, give me a break. How does someone get to be mayor of a place called Deadman Springs, with the last official population declared at 111? Surely someone doesn't run for such a position. Why would anyone want to be a mayor in the first place? Not that Deadman Springs is a bad place to be mayor, mind you, if someone really wanted to be one. Quite the contrary. It's a sweet, sleepy bedroom community just north of Ginger Home, Pennsylvania, which itself is known as Little Switzerland for the way its gingerbread homes are built on the sides of hills, attracting tourists galore for its vast array of simple and exotic arts and crafts. Add to that lots of good weather, good food, all the way from great burgers and barbecue to elegant and fine dining. A vast array of summer festivals like the blues, jazz, and classical music weekends, spiced by the likes of the PT Cruiser, VW, Corvette, and antique auto rallies. And add to it was probably the second largest number of wedding chapels in the world, where over 100 weddings commit to one to another on February 14th each year, the biggest business day of the year. And you have one fun place to live near. If one suffers from all this goodness, there's enough massage therapists, healing waters, health food stores, and healing elements to nourish both body and soul to recovery. Deadman Springs takes the name from one of the early settlers in the southeast region of Pennsylvania, John I. Deadman, who came there from Tennessee in about 1832. The ferry boat used to cross the Dry Gulch River near the present site of what is now the last of the one-lane wood plank expansion bridges in the state. Swingman's Pass, we call it, named after the hangman's nooses that used to swing from its underbelly. The town has a rich history, including a now defunct railroad that once ran through town, connecting us to Ginger Home. And the once rumored story that Deadman Springs was a bedroom community for Ginger Home in more ways than one still makes for occasional idle curiosity. To be honest, it's not really so occasional, and surely not so idle. The truth of the matter is that in many ways Deadman Springs has the best of all worlds. It sits at the mouth of Old Dry Gulch as it empties into Empty Mouth Lake, so canoeing and other boating are celebrated in fine style without being intrusive. There is excellent fishing in and around Deadman Springs for both bass and trout enthusiasts. Ordinances allow for in-home businesses, although from the looks of things, one would never know any business existed at all. The natural beauty of the town's forest along the riverside walking trail and in the picturesque RV park nourish resplendent. The recent establishment of a wildlife trail along the riverfront, intended primarily to encourage butterfly inhabitation, is becoming a paradise for various forms of other wildlife. We have our very own B&B, the Dead Springs Inn, which proudly fashions a baker's dozen lovely antique-filled guest rooms with scrumptious breakfast and cozy late afternoon wine and hors d'oeuvres. And just to spice life up a bit, several times a year, folks from in and around town engage one another in the joy-filled, musically rendered atmosphere of a good old-fashioned hootenanny at the town community center. Great food, exuberant singing, inspired line dancing and all. Couple that with a blue heron rookery of over 40 nests nestled high in the trees that grace a branch of the full flowing river. A recent sighting of no less than 8 bald eagles standing at attention not 50 yards from where I sit, and a few beaver dams punctuated by the slapping of a flat, broad tail on the water that sounds more like the crack of a 30-30 rifle, and you have some breathtaking views of a treasured life. And the citizens of Deadman Springs, what about them? What are they like? Well, they're mighty friendly when they want to be, and not so much when they don't want to be, just like folks everywhere I've lived. A case in point is that you could go for days, sometimes weeks, unless you have a post office box, that is, and then it's impossible, but you could go for a long time without seeing or being troubled by anyone in town. Yet on this Thanksgiving, less than a week away, our second annual holiday dinner is being held in the community center. Last year, when we initiated, some were skeptical, but still about 30 folks in the town of 111 attended. This year, the attendance is reaching to the mid-40s and still counting. Scrumptious turkey, stuffing, hot rolls, mashed potatoes and gravy, and drinks are provided. And the price of admission is simply a dish each of your favorite vegetable and dessert to be shared with the rest. Food truly fit for a king and queen. We've got plenty of characters who reside here, too, with 4 actual mayors in town, 3 ex, and 1 current, plus a cadre of folks who think they ought to be. A grand bunch of folks overall, mostly middle-aged and beyond, with a healthy sprinkling of younger folks who still surely add to the richness of this delightful place called home. Sounds like a great place to live, and it is. It also sounds like I'm either the mayor or the president of the local chamber of commerce, but we don't have the latter and probably never will, so that doesn't even count. How'd I get to be mayor? That's a long story, but I'll make it short. Well, shorter. The shortest version is the truth. No one else wanted it. Months before I was tapped for this dubious distinction, I had been asked to be on the Zoning and Planning Commission. I had done such things before in a previous incarnation in Western New York, so agreed to serve. Before I knew it, I was elected chairman of the group, and we embarked on a revision of our town ordinances, primarily to update them to be in line with more recent state statutes and to avoid future difficulties on zoning matters. We became involved in an extensive rewriting which included not only our original intention, but the establishment of policies that would keep the town pretty much as it is, including limiting animals like pigs, chickens, emus, llamas, and cattle from being raised for profit. At the time, our commission consisted of a retired gentleman, let's call him Don, who has very strong opinions in the sense that only everything done in the past is irreverent and therefore irrevocable. A very bright, highly experienced, outspoken, and strong woman, let's call her Sarah. Well, you get the point. Got to protect the innocent and not so innocent all in one. Anyhow, who has considerable experience of this kind in a larger metropolitan area. A cheerful yet pragmatic woman, Susie, who makes absolutely the very best sticky buns in the world, doesn't mince words, and who has the best interests of the town at heart. Mac, a young man with a degree in public policy, who's bright as the day is long and right-minded, even if a bit naive in matters politic. Things of a political nature turn his stomach, actually. Then there's Alfred, our town attorney, who is a stickler for the law and extremely knowledgeable, extremely competent, extremely funny guy, who just happens to be my landlord's son, and the one who I let convince me to stay in town despite my divorce. All in all, these folks were doing a superb job rewriting the ordinances. One of the many pluses for me was to have the benefit of being able to watch the personalities unfold during our deliberations. The most profound, simply because it seems to parallel the general character of mainstream America, occasioned the sparks that sometimes flew between our frequently protective retiree, Don, and our strong, bright, and forthright woman, Sarah. Many men who view themselves as strong simply cannot abide women who are strong, perhaps even stronger than they are in some ways. It's a sad fact, but very evident in day-to-day affairs of state, even today in our neighborhoods and homes. It's probably the very reason why Hillary will have an enormously difficult time becoming president, although no one, except in Florida that is, knows how people will vote once in the booth. Back to the story, okay? An opening became available on the city council. Can you imagine a town of 11 calling itself a city and having a city council? And I was asked to fill it. I accepted, but felt somewhat guilty about leaving behind what was becoming an ever-growing amount of work by the Zoning and Planning Commission, In the end, I thought I could still support the work by being their patron saint on the council. Strange how we can justify most anything, eh? In early spring a few years ago, I ventured to Mexico, as I fairly frequently do, to house sit a home for some friends there. When I returned, I found that our then mayor, Joe, had resigned due to the fact that he had to undertake several operations over just a few months and needed time and less stress to assist in his healing. Josie, our wonderful recorder-treasurer, was the interim mayor by statute and called our group together for the purpose of selecting a mayor to fulfill Joe's term. Joe had been a strong mayor, a good man, and with lots of administrative experience, so it would be difficult to replace. But then each of the current aldermen would certainly bring his own attributes to the cause if chosen. The election could hardly be called that. Josie called the meeting to order and declared the purpose of the meeting. Several chimed in that it would be good if Josie herself just continued on with the job until the next election. But she allowed that she had a young child to raise and just couldn't see herself doing both. Then, one by one, each of the aldermen or alderwomen found a way to obviate the necessity for them to serve. As I heard each explanation as to why this or that one wouldn't be mayor, or couldn't be mayor, I thought that my reason for not being named was as good as any of theirs, and prepared myself to vote someone else into the mayor's position for the betterment of all. When it came to my turn, I simply declined because my house was for sale, and said that I could well be leaving the community in a month or two. Well, said one of the members, one obviously far more clever than I am, if you did leave that soon, we wouldn't be any worse off than we are now, so why don't you take it? With your background, it would be a breeze. I was moved to uproarious laughter by his take on the issue, and before I could gather myself and launch my own defense, the rest fell in behind his line of thinking. They had dodged the bullet themselves, and had ricocheted off the exit sign and struck me right in the behind. In a flicker of a moment, I had been snookered into being the next mayor of Deadman Springs. That simple, railroaded into a job that someday could just get me railed out of town. The next morning, while fetching my email from the post office, our postmaster, she prefers to be called postmaster instead of postmistress because the term postmaster has more power in it, congratulates me and says, "Gee, Jim, won't that look great on your resume?" Oh, goodness, I thought. Don't tell me I've worked in leadership positions most of my adult life, only to have being Mayor of Deadman Springs on my resume. Surely this couldn't be true. Yet here I am, true or not. I must drift a moment and say this about our very best postmaster in the universe. She provides the widest array of services in the nation, from properly dispensing news and messages, both good and bad, housing articles and other information about our beloved town, displaying artistic renderings by local citizens of our favorite swingman's past, caring for the garden in front of the post office and our sign welcoming people into the world of nostalgia, and providing an herb garden for all to nourish their summer fare with. All this on top of prompt full service from the U.S. Postal Service, each day delivered with a cheerful, uplifting attitude and a big smile. She's far better than the best apple. A visit a day with her keeps the doctor away from most of us, that's for sure. Well, since that first appointment, there's been another election where the aldermen and recorder treasurers ran for 2-year terms, and I for the official 4. I thought, well, I've gone this far, why not? I prided myself, actually the council and the recorder treasurer too, on being elected unanimously in that election of 2002. And not one of us, as far as I know, spent even a single penny on the campaign for re-election. What a model to be replicated on the state and national level. Well, the truth is, we all ran unopposed. But it's still also true that not a single vote was cast against any of us. How many people can make that claim on any level? Well, it's like being mayor of What's it like being mayor of Deadman Springs? Like most everywhere else, I suppose. Can't do much right, lots wrong, at least to some people. Fact is, though, most people are so involved in their own lives that they're oblivious to what's going on around them. Besides, I faced a marvelously fun-filled challenge with a somewhat different attitude. As long as I continue to find the fun in it and we're doing some good, I'll continue. Plus, I learned long ago that it's none of my business what anyone else thinks about me or what I do and don't do. They're entitled to their opinion, and I'm entitled to mine, and I don't take anyone else's personally. Doing such a foolish thing could only get us all in trouble. In this matter, I'm reminded of a favorite poem of mine by Persian poet Hafiz, in which he tells what happens when egos get in the way, if I may paraphrase. The thought that one man is either better or worse than another quickly breaks the wine glass. Indeed, as we place either ourselves or another on a pedestal, or take them off the pedestal, we are quick to fall from the grace that permits unfettered harmony among and between peoples. It's a lesson we might learn and learn well, lest we demean the sacredness of human dignity more than we already have in this world of ours. As time passes, I'm coming to both know and appreciate this town more and more. People have become more than mere faces to me. Their character comes into full bloom as I get to know them better. More and more I see them as simply good people, informed by their history, moved to speak on behalf of that history, something I've always admired and respected, and something I believe we ought to honor as we traverse this planet. After all, it's the shoulders of all these that come before us that we stand on. It's their labors of love that have paved the way, provided the foundation for our very own. Their sacred stones comprise the very foundation upon which we continue to build. Thank God for every bit of it, and for all of them. You can believe me when I say that this mayor thing has been fun-filled. How so? Being a mayor, fun-filled? Well, just having the opportunity to guide people through thorny issues, and some not so thorny, but that which appear so to some is indeed fun. It's reframing the issues and concerns that makes it fun. Helping folks see something in a new light, at least perhaps for them. It's dealing with all kinds of personalities, yet seeing behind personality to the innate goodness within all. So each has her or his dignity maintained, no matter what the position taken, even how it's taken. It's offering up ideas for enriching our community. And to contribute. And it's always, and I do mean always, honoring those who have come before us, upon whose shoulders we stand. It's just being an example for some of this that's the most fun. For to do so is just my own personality showing its way, just one among all the others. No better, no worse, simply different. It's also working side by side, planting bulbs so the wildlife trail will be a haven for butterflies and hummingbirds and other festive wildlife. It's tapping into one of the state's engineers' love for swingmen's paths and letting him talk me through the process of how he's going to renovate the bridge, and then talking him into painting it the original golden color instead of a nondescript silvery nothingness. It's about keeping townsfolk informed via a periodic newsletter called The Deadman Speaks, and getting donations for our wildlife trail and the foundation stone that will house a plaque commemorating the space for the now defunct but nevertheless hugely contributory Deadman Springs Fire Department Women's Auxiliary. It's having our first Community Appreciation Day, where we honored everyone in the community for their contributions, and celebrating our very first Arbor Day, planting 2 pink dogwoods in memory of a dear resident couple who passed on last winter. Yes, it's even having a ribbon-cutting ceremony for our septic tank. Believe that one. Our new privies and shower stalls that now bless our RV park after some 20 years of the community holding that vision. It's even publicly noticing that one of our town folks, a lovely, sweet woman who just happens to be my landlady, is the granddaughter of one of the founders of Arbor Day, and watching her bathe in a simple recognition that lights her spirit. And of course, it's fun simply learning and growing in character from it all. When I think of all these joy-filled receptacles, I'm caused to wonder if this mayor thing isn't serving in some ways as a replacement love of my life, allowing me to continue exercising a loving attitude that emits joy from the creative act of authentic relationship. On a time and task level, I don't feel I'm married as being mayor. That is, I'm not driven by it to the exclusion of other people and things that are important to me. Yet, upon serious reflection, I find that it does provide me with genuine opportunities to give without expectation of results or return, something the truth about loving expresses in genuine relationship of any kind, let alone marriage. I'll have to let this idea perk some more and wait for wisdom to reveal the truth. Regardless, it's fun just being able to celebrate life for the gift it is and to honor and validate the richness of life that can be found in everyone and everything. My father, the best man I've ever met, taught me how to do that, how to find joy in all I do. As I stand here today as but a simple human being, grateful in every way for being honored with the privilege of this extraordinary gift. Any downsides to report? Perhaps, but not the ones you'd normally think of. What to some might be considered troublesome phone calls for help on one matter or another, and being asked to settle what are mostly petty differences, just come with the territory and further the development of mediation skills. What really bothers me are those times when people can't see past their immediate convenience or beyond the end of their noses to the intended good for their children or grandchildren. Take, for example, our major project to obtain city water for all, which despite over 5 years of hard work by many, plus a town referendum, failed to come to fruition because almost half of the folks wouldn't trust enough to sign the appropriate documents that would permit state funding. And then there's the dog, or better named the leash ordinance. It seems like those whose animals are the biggest offenders are those most opposed. Isn't that always the way? We're far from being at the dog pack stage, but a few of us want to head off that before it occurs. It doesn't take much to tip the scales. In just the last few months, we've had 2 people nipped or bitten and 1 fall to a broken arm, and a few who walk for exercise scared nearly out of their wits, just because people won't take responsibility for their pets. Well, we're headed for a showdown in the next meeting or 2. At the last council meeting, I let it be known that I'd be stepping up to the bully puppets soon and give them a little sampling. And gave them just a little sampling. Just last week, we had a young couple and their 9-year-old son move in, and I went over to welcome them to the town. The gentleman said to me, "Mr. Mayor, I really don't think us inhospitable, but the first thing I told our neighbors is that we're building a fence around our backyard so our dogs won't be bothering anyone around town." Now that's music to my ears. Someone, especially as young as they are, taking responsibility for their animals. And then there's a member of this very council, I continued, who, when his dog simply nipped someone who fussed at her, had her put down. Can you imagine a feeling that's that strong about accountability? Well, that's what I can only commend people for, and what I'm going to be looking to you, this town's leadership, to provide this when this item comes off the table at the next meeting. Will it work? I don't have the vaguest notion, but I do know that we must try to do the best for the greater good, or get out of the business, out of town, or both. There was one thing I do miss, though. Before our beloved bridge was completely renovated last year, it played like a fine-tuned instrument in the New York Philharmonic. Well, okay, more like a hootenanny band in the 1980s. 1880s, that is. Thumpity-thump-thump, thumpity-thump-thump, clang. Thumpity-thump-thump, 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 clang. It went. Like the angelic gifts that put one's heart back in rhythm in the dark of night. Now with a new face with its huge timber replacements interlaced, it plays more like a washboard and a thimble solo without accompaniment. I guess that is just nature's latest way of planting nostalgia in the souls of our citizens, but I do miss the original sonata just the same. Nevertheless, on balance, I consider myself a very fortunate man to be mayor of Deadman Springs. Indeed I am. What transpires between and among the people is energizing, sometimes momentary, debilitating, or at least somewhat disappointing, but energizing nonetheless. It inspires me to be only what I can, no matter what the condition, no matter what the circumstance. My life is enriched beyond measure to be able to see into the heart of each individual, and in the final analysis do what I can to honor that heart space while still doing my very best to keep a handle on the action that could hopefully be in the best long-term interest of all concerned. A challenge? Oh, sure. Fun? You bet. Let me provide one last example to illustrate what I mean by fun. Just the other day, I presented an idea to the city council. A few days earlier at the post office, I had forewarned one of the aldermen about the idea, hoping by giving him a heads up on it that he would find a way to help me obtain approval. Not really. I just planned it to see how much fun we could have with it and to see how long it would take for the rumor to hit the town. Here's the idea as I presented it to the council. In quotes, recommendation to the Deadman City Springs Council. It is hereby recommended to Deadman Springs City Council that we establish a placement for the shoe tree that was disbanded in Ginger Home, and that once a year, at the end of the camping season, we have the fire department assist us in gathering the shoes from the tree, wash them, and send them to charity for distribution to the needy somewhere around the world. By stressing the charitable nature of the project and suggesting that folks discard sneakers and athletic shoes in reusable condition rather than leather shoes, so it would be easier to cleanse and reuse them, we could collect something of value to distribute. The benefits of such a project are manifold, some of which are drawing attention to our community in a healthy way, while at the same time informing people about our RV park, nature trail, and butterfly garden, renewing a sense of charity towards others, highlighting the necessity for a sense of humor and fun activities, in other words, of not taking ourselves too seriously, and providing us with the opportunity to work with the fire department for the good of others. All in all, this is an opportunity for uniting the community with a small, doable project that enriches the soul, both individually and collectively. The costs for this project are minimal, if any at all. It costs nothing for the tree, or for relieving the tree of its souls. The only cost would be to wash the athletic shoes and ship them. To defray costs and perhaps add cash to the donation contributed, we could suggest that participants make a small donation to help defray such costs. Such donation could simply be placed in the after-season money slot at the RV park. Suggested sign, the Soul Tree. This is the place where souls hang out, S-O-L-E-S, hang out. The souls of you and me. Yes, this is a place where souls hang out, from souls, S-O-U-L-S, that are fun and free. Welcome to the town of friendly souls. This very special soul tree is established as an opportunity for people to gather in fun to collect reusable sneakers and athletic shoes, which can, on an annual basis, be distributed to those in greater need. We ask that you join us by also making a contribution of $1 or so to help defray costs for cleansing and shipping the collection to the needy. please do so on a donation box at the RV Park entry booth. And by all means, enjoy your visit here. A map of our fair town, including references to our inventoried forest nature trail and butterfly garden, are available at the RV Park. Thank you for participating. Well, you can imagine my feigned chagrin when I asked the council for their comments. The first one out of the bag was from the elderly gentleman I had been forewarned about, with his shoulders slumped and his head jutting out like a turtle from its shell, as he shyly peeked out from under his frayed brim of his discolored baseball cap. "Nuh-uh. We sure don't need something like this in our town," and delivered with a smile at that. I could feel the rapidly growing uneasiness from the other council members, and the guests from the community that night seemed restless at best. I knew I was in for it in this one, all in the name of fun. Next, the youngest member of the council spoke up, he too with a smile, a sort of smile that says, "I don't really like the idea, but nice try, Mayor," humoring me all along. He summarized what his look had simply told me with, "I agree with Job, but I sure do like your poem." The third in line didn't have to speak, although he's usually the one I can depend upon for pragmatic, down-to-earth perspective to most anything we'd be discussing at the time. The look on his face said it all. As he lifted his eyes to meet mine, a look of utter disbelief forming his features without words or others for others to hear. "Where the heck did you get this lame-brained idea?" Actually, I think his look says something in language much stronger than this, but I need not report that here. "You don't have to say anything more, Carl," I responded. "Your look says it all," which diffused the tension for some. A titter of laughter here and there began to set it free. When one of the two women alderpersons absent, that left the last response to Darla, who was usually very thoughtful and intelligent about matters at hand. I could see that she didn't care much for the idea, but was fathoming the depths for her computer-like memory to come up with something to let me off easy, something rational, quite unlike how my proposal was envisioned. Time was pregnant with pause. After what seemed like an eternity, I suggested, "That's okay, Darla. I think the rest of the group has rendered the proposition dead on arrival." No, just a moment," she rejoined. "I was just trying to recall. I think that the other one that was stopped was eliminated because someone had said that the shoes were responsible for killing the tree. And if we're applying to become a Tree City, USA, that would be working against our purpose, wouldn't it?" I laughed inwardly, and I was about to respond with the fact that shoes certainly couldn't kill a tree, especially because they'd only be there from April until October. But I suddenly realized there was no turning this around, and decided to not prolong the agony. Darla's argument had settled it. Whether it was accurate or not, it gave the others what they needed to shift their energy to a silent but nonetheless final declaration expressed in their posture. Whew! Dodged another crazy idea from our mayor. All that was left for me to do, for my own sake, as well as for the sake of dignity for all, was to diffuse the situation with humor. "Well," I said with tongue-in-cheek, "if you're not going to support me in such monumental issues, you're sure not going to want me to be mayor much longer." At last, some laughter to punctuate the relief. Surely the proposal was dead as a doornail. On the way out the door that evening, the truth of it all became known. "You know, Jim," said one of the aldermen, the people that the tree and ginger home attracted were nothing but drunks, and they caused all kinds of trouble there." I nodded a sign of understanding, but responded inwardly with a knowing smile. "No, I'm not a drunk, nor did I cause any trouble, or would I?" "Well, that's okay. At least the seed has been planted. Maybe it'll hold better in the warmth of springtime sun as it brings up the flowers planted in our new butterfly garden last autumn. Everything has its own time and place, after all. Yes, I love being mayor of this very special town called Deadman Springs, and will remain so until I think it's time to move on, or until enough others think the same thing." Well, that's the story of my time as mayor. And I enjoyed telling the story about it for sure, and enjoying the memories of the people there. I've since moved from that area to the state of Oregon, Interestingly, very similar to the state that I was living in some ways, and I'm enjoying that as well. Indeed, my father did help me understand the need to find the joy in everything I did and everywhere I go. Of course, the joy is me. The joy is you. We find what we really are everywhere we go. And so ends this story. I'm glad I could share it with you. As you know, I like to end each week with a little post that I have found. This one is from a 6-year-old. And it's about the reason why dogs don't live as long as people, according to this 6-year-old. People are born so that they can learn how to live a good life, like loving everybody all the time and being nice. Well, dogs already know how to do that, so they don't have to stay as long. Now that is sheer brilliance, for sure. So until next time, my dear friends, I hope you stay well and happy. By all means, do that for yourselves. Remember, create your own stories, tell them, share them, listen to other stories, help each other become really good storytellers. It's something we really need in our life these days. In any event, my dear friends, namaste. I love you.